Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So today's upload, we will be talking about the longer range pattern. We'll be discussing who will see some snow, who will see some rain, what weather is coming, all of that good stuff. And hopefully it will be an entertaining video or at least informative. If you guys are new to this channel, hello and welcome. I am a hobbyist in terms of weather. I like to make my own little forecasts. We'll go over the details, but obviously always refer to the National Weather Service for official information. But if you like hobbying the weather, enjoy weather content, consider subscribing to this channel, consider liking the video if you are a returning viewer. So yeah, let's get into this video. So let's start off by looking at the GFS, and by the way, the title of the video, you can see we'll be talking about increased snow potential across the United States. Now, this won't be an immediate increase, not in the next few days, but in the next week and a half, we could be seeing some pretty interesting features, and really, actually, the first one will be coming through this upcoming weekend. So, and that one looks very interesting. So notice right now we have a large system across the Northeast, and obviously this is the system we've been talking about for the past few days. This is a mixture of Tropical Storm Zeta or Hurricane Zeta, and now it's basically a ex-tropical cyclone. It got mixed in with the moisture from a winter storm that dropped all the heavy snow across the west, the Colorado, Wyoming, New Mexico area, and into Texas. There was quite a few locations that got pretty decent amounts of snow over there. And again, you can see it formed this absolutely giant. I mean, it's basically a superstorm as I described in yesterday's video. This thing is absolutely moisture packed. There will be a bit of snow. I was considering making an update video today in the morning, but I decided not to, since this thing looks to remain mainly rain. And the snow that does mix in, the models are kind of jumping back and forth. Some are showing maybe 5-6 inches widespread across Massachusetts, while others are showing 1 to 2. National Weather Service is kind of going in between with the 2 to 3 inches, which honestly at this point seems reasonable, since a lot of these rain to snow transition storms are extremely hard to predict, and almost never are predicted 100% right. If they were to be predicted 100% right, that would be amazing, but obviously that's the weather. Let's move this forward, and notice that we have this giant storm right. I'm kidding. This is like a little guy. It's basically going to disintegrate. If you live across South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, you may get a bit of snow showers into tonight. That really dwindles. You can see tomorrow in the morning and in the early morning hours, late morning hours, early afternoon. The Northeast may be seeing a bit of snow. New York City may be seeing a bit of snowflakes, but Boston, Rhode Island, Connecticut, especially then as far north and northwest as possible, you'll be seeing more snowfall. This is where things get interesting. So notice that the cold air disappears pretty much. It gets pushed out by a lot of warm air, and what we see is a really large system come onshore, not to the south. It doesn't hit the United States with the actual center of the storm. A bit of precipitation will hit Washington and Oregon, but really maintained to the coastal areas. Lots of heavy snow across British Columbia and into Alberta. There are actually snow warnings. I think 10 to 20, even 30 centimeters are possible, even across the lower elevation areas. Obviously, the mountains will be seeing much more. I'll show you some of the snowfall totals across the mountains in the next week that could fall right there, quite significant amounts. And we push this forward. Notice this thing doesn't disappear or dissipate. Sometimes we see that where the atmosphere kind of cuts this system off from its moisture sources, and it gets torn up by the large Rockies, and it doesn't do much. This time around, it seems to be doing pretty well. You can see it's 988, and it actually gets pretty well picked up by this jet stream. And notice we start seeing a trough, a negative tilt trough, and what this does is accelerates this storm and also brings a lot of wind and cold air behind this. So this is now Halloween. A lot of the eastern United States across Halloween will be extremely warm, especially the Midwest. You can see these winds right here. Again, another windy day possibly for Illinois, Missouri, Michigan. I mean, I'm looking outside the window right now and I can see leaves flying in, just these gusts of wind putting pressure on the windows. So we could see another day across the Midwest with very strong winds, as we have a high pressure centered across the Northeast. So here will be relatively calm. We have a low pressure pushing in the winds from the northwest. This kind of converges and creates a strong strong alley of winds from the south and east. And so warm temperatures will be in place. And in fact, if I were to go to the 2-meter temperature shaded, you would see that there are generally 50s and 60s across much of the Midwest where the snow does fall, or where the snow cover is still present from the previous storms. It will be naturally cooler, but during the day, almost not a single location is below freezing, which we have seen quite a bit of already this year. This season. And notice this storm continues pushing on. It's a classic Manitoba, Mauler, Alberta Clipper. Really, it doesn't really apply to any of those terms because it developed a bit earlier. But I guess the closest would be a Alberta Clipper or a Saskatchewan Screamer. And notice that this shoves into portions of, obviously, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, central to northern areas of those provinces. We'll be seeing a ton of snow out of that. And it looks to be pretty powerful winds as well, so maybe some blizzard warnings. I don't know how they exactly define that in Canada, because the National Weather Service doesn't forecast for those locations, but definitely quite a bit of snow may be on its way. Then this thing takes a turn for the worse. Notice it becomes positively tilted. So this storm starts heading towards the north and east, and while it does so, it almost shoots out like a braking system. And notice, very, very cold air rushing in front of it, almost. It starts behind it and then gets out in front of it. This thing has a ton of wind, lots of snow showers and snow squalls. This may not be at this point right here a large snow system with consistent snowfall. This could be some snow squally, snow showery weather that is considerably usually a bit worse, because usually when you have a lot of snow squalls, you see a lot of wind, and that could cause pretty miserable conditions. Where it is warm from that Halloween warmth day, you could see a lot of wind pushing in from the south and west. A lot of warm temperatures. It will be warm, so rain will be falling, but it quickly gets shut down by this system, and we see snow breaking out across the UP, northern Michigan, into northern Wisconsin, possibly the Arrowhead of Minnesota, southeastern Canada, north of Lake Superior, seeing a lot of snow. So that definitely is going to be a threat for you guys. And as this pushes into the east, towards the northeast and Canadian border right there, notice a lot of cold air is present, so the nights right here will be very chilly. I know that for my location, I think the forecast is 26, which is downright very cold, and usually we don't see such cold temperatures so early, but again, all it takes is one of these storm systems lined up in a good position to make those cold temperatures, and in this case, that will be the case. You can see the system has a lot to work with and a lot of cold air. It is brief though. And notice that a lot of snow showers again pass through Lake Erie, Ontario. I do want to mention that this does kick up a bit of lake effect. Now this may be a bit unrepresented by the GFS, but you can see right there some lake effect. Not long term, because this cold air is really quickly moving out and the pattern breaks through. But with the help of this high pressure, potentially you can see spinning winds clockwise off the lakes. There could be a bit of lake effect. And we continue seeing snow showers across, Quebec, Toronto, even Quebec, Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, all those larger cities centered across southeastern Canada. We'll be seeing some snow showers. No significant snow, but if you get caught under a few of those snow bands, you could get a quick dusting to maybe an inch or two. And notice it spreads into the Appalachian, northern Appalachian, the Adirondacks, into Vermont, New Hampshire. And we see a little guy coming in afterwards. Some of the models are showing actually pretty powerfully, dropping a few inches of snow. And this whole eventful storm moves off to the north and east, and this is where things look very interesting. We start seeing very, very warm temperatures. I mean, some of these anomalies are off the charts, quite literally. It's higher than the readings are showing. Look at that. Look at those colors right there, and this continues to intensify. Very, very different temperatures from what we've been seeing in the past couple of days across the United States with those very cold, snowstorms and winter storms. Many locations that got a foot of snow, possibly even more, half a foot, could be seeing 70s, 60s, maybe even some 80s across the panhandles where they just had snow a few days ago, so lots of warmth. But, of course, this is winter time, so things stay volatile as equilibrium must be preserved. So where it gets very hot, it gets very cold. If that didn't make much sense, I want to show you the Climate Prediction Center 8 to 14 day outlook at around this time frame. You can see 6th through the 12th. They have very warm across the east and Midwest, but they also have very cold conditions across much of the Northwest and Western United States. That's usually the case, not even during winter. When we see an area of really warm temperatures, there's usually an equally balanced area of cold temperatures, or at least, significantly cold. Maybe not as, maybe not matching in terms of exact magnitude, but usually it's pretty darn close. And in this case, you can see it seems to be centered across these locations. It is 8 to 14 days out, so it's pretty far out. And notice we do have above average precipitation, and that's why we could see an increase of storms. You haven't seen the fun part of this yet, so notice we still see a lot of temperatures, but for the weather people that know, when temperatures start rising to the north very quickly and push way into southern Canada, usually that's due to a large storm system brewing a bit farther off to the west. And if we look at the precipitation anomaly, that's exactly the case, and this storm has been shown in the models for a few days. Not just the GFS, the European Canadian GFS parallel. All those models show a threat for those systems, or that storm in particular. This one you can see comes off on the coast. Nothing too strong, a bit of rain, bit of snow, obviously, but with what it develops into, you would think it would be stronger. Look at this. This gets out into the plains and absolutely bombs itself. I mean, it may be a bomb cyclone, 972 millibars. Look at that. Huge cold front, severe weather. Obviously, this is very far out, and you may be thinking, why are you speaking like this? Huge cold front, huge. I just get excited when a storm like this shows up in the long range. Obviously, the models tend to over-exaggerate at this time, and they tend to be wrong. But we'll have to see and definitely keep an eye open. Usually, when several models show a storm system at this hour ranging around where the medium goes into the long range, there are large changes, but definitely there is usually, a active potential, and that usually maintains itself throughout, to the day of presence. And notice this thing's a classic winter storm. We have the tail, if you will, kind of its legs, very significantly strong rain. Cold air behind this, warm front out ahead of it. You can see some mixing, and behind it a classic blizzard, comma-shaped blizzard. Very strong winds. Obviously, this is like a dream for a perfect storm, but whether or not this will happen, way too far out to tell. Notice this thing pushes into Manitoba, Saskatchewan, eventually does into Ontario, but as a significantly weaker storm. Does bring a bit of cold air, really not too significant. I mean, it may look a bit more significant on the map if you look at the anomalies. But again, we've already seen some pretty cold temperatures this year, so that's not going to feel as big of a shock as it would for the first time around. And then you can see the GFS shows another system a bit further to the south and east with more rain, and probably a few, maybe another system. I mean, this thing looks active, this pattern looks ongoing. And just to show you, let's look at the snowfall amounts. Just out of curiosity, you can see this GFS does glitch a bit. Sometimes it does this. It's only recently started doing this, but I guess that second storm doesn't show. But look how much it shows with that first storm. Pretty ridiculous amounts. And this isn't just from one storm. This is aligned with that first storm we'll be seeing this weekend. And lots of the snow here will be falling from this weekend storm. And a lot of this will be falling from that second farther out storm. Let's look at the Canadian, for example. This is its forecast model outlook. Look how much snow across central Canada, if you will, a bit further to the north. But this is this week's snowstorm this weekend, and that's the one later on in the forecasting range. But really, the Canadian only starts acting it up at around that time. It shoots a few more systems that the GFS doesn't at around that time frame, so that's interesting to see if that will happen. But it obviously does keep that first beast across the northeast. Rhymed right there. And the Great Lakes, so that's definitely going to happen, and this is very random, this type of snow showery activity. It's usually hard to predict. You can see even some heavier snow across the main area and southeastern Canada, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, pushing into Labrador, Newfoundland. In terms of the GFS parallel, this model is a bit outdated. This just came in yesterday at night. But just to show you that it's been pretty darn consistent, even for old model runs and on different models on themselves. Here we have that northeast system. A bit of snow, obviously, tomorrow, so get prepared. It will be pretty disgusting travel conditions. And then we see that system. You can see very strong snow to the north of it, but it's disconnected. But then it starts developing that cold front hybrid-like system. It gets caught up in a jet stream, and obviously very convective, showery, windy weather across the Northeast and Great Lakes. And you can see this GFS parallel includes that second wave, which I mentioned. Could be interesting to look at. But it keeps, again, the chance for that large storm as well. Significantly weaker, but the moisture is there, and it does its fair share of activity as well. There's a third one possible. The European model, let's take a glance at that model. Surface and precipitation, precip type and rate. This only goes out to 240, so that big storm that the GFS showed only started making its act together at around that time, and the European pretty much mimics that. Notice we have that system across the Northeast, definitely some brief periods of heavy snow. And we see that weekend system move across Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. Lots of snow if you live across these locations. And it will move through central Ontario. And right around here, it positions itself and launches itself to the north and east, developing a cold front and possible snow showers on the back, obviously. And look at the winds, very, very strong winds, and I wouldn't be surprised to see some significant lake effect. Notice lots of precipitation. It's not organized, but it's definitely there. So if this, you can see right there, potentially producing a very heavy swath of snow across Labrador and into maybe Quebec area, cities like Quebec, possibly seeing that heavier brunt of that snow. And then the European, you can see that west starts acting up and definitely starts developing a pretty large storm. Whether or not it's like the GFS, we'll have to see. But notice, low pressure, high pressure, these things work together to create insanely strong winds, and obviously that promotes very, very warm temperatures. Look at that. This is actually the morning temperature, morning lows if you go out in the middle of the night, or 7 o'clock in the morning going to work. Well, not on a Sunday most likely, but 60s, so during the actual day, you can see it starts pretty warm as well and starts pushing to the north. That's basically it for today's video. This was a long one, but hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something new. And again, I just want to mention that there will be a phase of very, very warm temperatures, obviously, in a 6 to 10 day outlook. It goes from warm to mainly dry and wet across the west to a pretty split pattern depending on where you live. Southeastern United States, the half, southeastern half warm, northwestern half cold, and more wet and then dry. All right, see you guys in the next episode. Bye.